Hello, it's Kristen again, and this is my fourth Intro to Psych video journal. Today I'm going to be talking about something I found really interesting in chapter 11. It talked about cognitive dissonance, which is pretty much whenever you start doing something that your brain doesn't really agree with or it doesn't line up with your opinions or your morals, you actually start to change your attitudes to match your actions. And I thought this was really interesting. They use the example of like communists and how like the Chinese government would actually um, start having these American soldiers that they captured start doing little things or kind of taking small steps toward toward having a communist mindset, I guess, and which is called the foot in the door phenomenon, which is where you start doing little things and then over time you actually start to change your attitude to match what you've been doing because you have this dissonance in your mind of you're doing things that you don't agree with, so you have to figure out how to make that make sense in your brain so you're not doing something that you disagree with. And I actually related this a lot to what I've been learning in the past year. Last semester I took an English course at LeTourneau, and we read this book by N.T. Wright called After You Believe. And in this, he talked a lot about the importance of having having habits and doing things very intentionally, because over time, those habits become what you believe. And he talked a lot about how things at first aren't natural, and he kind of used this example of like when you're golfing or something, at first it's not really gonna feel natural, but over time that swing is gonna be normal because you've been doing it so often you don't really have to think about it. But the first time you do it, it's not gonna feel normal. And so it's the same thing with habits, and over time as you start doing it, it becomes natural and it becomes what you automatically do. And it becomes what you believe. And so if there's something that you want to do that you don't, I guess you want to do, kind of like generosity. If you want to be generous, but you really aren't, if you just keep being generous, then over time it will become something that you actually do love to do. And so it's really contrary to our human nature because things aren't always natural, and that's kind of why we have why God gave us the law, because we do sin. We do have this natural inclination to do things that aren't necessarily right. But culture kind of tells us the opposite. They kind of say, oh, because it's natural and because that's just automatically what you do, that's who you are. And if you try to do something different, then that's fake and it's not really real. And this kind of just, it's just kind of sad because I think in the long run, it stops people from committing to habits and doing things to change their behavior and become something different and become someone better. And so having these doing these different habits and doing things, having actions that change our attitudes is a great way to become the person that you want to be and become the person that God's created you to be. Because like a lot of the things in the Bible, like the fruit of the Spirit or different things that we're called to uphold, like sexual purity or a lot of different things, that's not always easy. But something for me that I realized is that by doing these things and by disciplining myself to have actions that are going to spur on attitudes, it's going to be very helpful in the long run because it's going to bring me closer to Christ and help me become the person that God's created me to be. And so knowing these ideas actually help me to reject this idea that culture says that you are what is natural. You are your natural inclinations. It helps me reject that and know that if I start disciplining myself and I say, I'm going to do this, because this is what the Bible says, or this is who God's called me to be, then I know that if it doesn't come natural, it's something that I can continue to work on, and it's not going to hold me back because it's not natural, because I know that these types of things aren't natural, but the more I do them, the more my attitude is going to change, because I'm having those actions, and my attitude is going to match those actions. And so it's really cool to see how science is actually backing up what theology has been saying all along, what the Bible's been saying, that by doing these things, you are becoming more of the person that that you're supposed to be. So yeah, that was really cool.